I'm gonna break down step by step exactly how I plan to get to $100,000 per month from where I am right now. I'm not gonna leave anything out. I'm gonna be completely transparent, open, and honest, and I'm gonna show you exactly how our system works. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Matt. I built an agency, and now I'm building a coaching business, more or less teaching people what I did with the agency and still now do with the coaching business. And really the entire goal with what we do is helping more early stage agency owners hit that 10, 20, $30,000 a month mark. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So what I found is that I'm at that level that I help more early stage agency owners get to, right? Maybe 10, maybe $20,000 a month, that ballpark. And from maybe February to around now, or maybe a month ago before these kind of big changes were happening, I was more or less stagnating at that stage. And I didn't really know why. But now being back home and being a lot more rational and being able to be a lot more objective, it's very clear why. The obvious thing was that I was in Bali for 2 months. If I was to stay in Bali more long term and I was to do it right, that would be a viable option and it would work. But because I was only there for 2 months and because my days were very packed with kickboxing, with training, with doing all this running and ice bath challenges that I was doing, I went to the Gili Islands for a few days. I was staying in different villas. I was staying at the Hamza villa with Hamza Ahmed, the YouTuber, watching Hamza's fight, doing a lot of different things. The sole kind of pure focus that you need for scale was not really achievable. And all that I was able to do was kind of maintain, right? And so what I need right now and what I've kind of given myself is the ability to have pure absolute focus to where right now on this day I'm meant to be in Greece right now. I'm meant to be in Greece, then go to Italy, then San Marino, then Turkey, then Thailand. I was meant to go on this big trip, and then after that in around September I was meant to go to Nepal. So I had all these kind of big amazing trips planned. I've cancelled every single one of them. They're all cancelled. What I'm going to do now and really the only thing that makes sense to do for scale is to stay here and focus, right? So before anything else, before we dive into any fancy tactics, number one is focus. I need a focus, and what that really comes down to in terms of my life is simplicity, right? So you can either have a simple personal life and a complex business life, or you can have a simple business life and a complex personal life. You can't have both being complex. It's too much, right? The nature of scale itself is complex, right? So of course we want to keep the business very simple. We want to keep it straightforward. That's great. But if I want to scale, if I want to increase the amount of revenue I'm making, that in of itself is complex, is going to create mess, right? So I need that mess. And so in order to have that mess, I cannot have any mess in my personal life. So what my day looks like now and what my days are going to look like is Monday to Saturday is going to be work. And of course, I'm going to break down the exact work I'm doing, the steps, etc., etc. Monday to Saturday is work. And then even I would put to Sunday midday is work, right? And then I genuinely allow myself to have Sunday evening, I guess, to fun / personal. Now, of course, fun doesn't mean I'm drinking. Fun doesn't mean that I'm eating bad foods. Doesn't mean I'm taking drugs. But doing personal life things. So whether it's going to Luna Park here in Sydney, going on a hike, doing personal things. And the reason for this, first of all, the reason why I'm not just working 7 days a week, every single hour of every single day, is because I'm doing this long term, right? This plan and this routine that I'm on is something that I want to be able to do long term. And so that means it needs to be somewhat sustainable. Of course, this isn't probably a good routine to have for the next 70 years. That's fine, of course. But over the next few years, potentially, and even potentially over the next decade, having something like this is sustainable because I can get a lot out of that day while I'm catching up with all my friends, going on dates, doing whatever it is that I want to do, while still having the absolute priority be the work and be the business, right? So before anything else, we need focus and we need simplicity. So I've done that by removing basically everything and coming back to Australia and having a very dialed in, simple personal life, right? Now, getting into what these work days look like, we need to go into kind of the daily routine, okay? So this is of course subject to change, and I'm going to get into all of the specific systems and exactly how we're going to be scaling in a bit. But what it's going to look like, at least for right now, is I'm waking up at 7:45. From 7:45 to 8:15 is wake plus habits. So of course, there's a lot of, contradictory advice, or maybe Alex Hormozy saying, oh, you should just wake up, go straight to work. There's other self-improvement people that say you should have this 3-hour routine where you do X, you do Y, you do Z, you do this, you do that, and then only after 4 hours of gym and of 2 hours of meditation and of a page of gratitude journaling and of 27 habits, we can get into it. What we need to probably understand, and what's typically always going to be right, is it's a spectrum. It's not like you only just get into work, or you have a 17-hour estrogen whole morning routine. The right answer is probably somewhere in the middle, right? So I keep the highest leverage, most important things, for example, meditation, tracking my weight, taking creatine, the kind of basic raw things that everybody should be doing, and I do them. And I kind of leave out the fluff, right? 7:45 to 8:15, wake plus habits. Now, I will go to the gym from around about, typically, 12 to 1:30. Will be gym. And I'm also, same thing, going to the gym Monday to Saturday, 6 days a week, and then I'm taking Sunday off of the gym. So 12 to 1:30, going to the gym. And at around, it does depend, but around about 10:30, I know this is maybe considered late to a lot of people, 10:30 to even 11:15, I am sleeping. And honestly, it's probably more towards the 11 side of things. The reason being is that I'm in Australia, and I want to be able to serve my clients as best as I possibly can. So for that, we have group calls inside of Olympus, and some of those group calls are at 10 p.m. my time, purely because it works best for the majority of my clients being in the UK or America or wherever they are, having a call at 10 p.m. and then our other calls are at 10 a.m. So it's kind of 12-hour difference. So no matter where you are in the world, the call times are going to work for you, right? So before anything else, this is what it looks like, right? Like before we actually add in the equation of work, 7:45 to 8:15, wake plus habits, 12 to 1:30, gym, 10:30, so between 10:30 and 11, probably closer to 11, sleeping. So that means that this period here and this period here is work, right? Just work, nothing else. So inside of these work hours, there's really only a few things that I really should be doing with my time. First of all, number one is sales. Of course, taking sales calls, and I'll get to when I'm going to outsource this and how it's going to work. Number two is appointments. So this can mean a few things, but just as a broad spectrum, things that I do to generate more appointments. So that could be personal outbound, so me actually sending messages myself. It could be setters, so managing my setters, and it could be content, right? Basically appointment generating activities. Number three is delivery, right? Delivery, so that means either building out new parts of the product or hopping on calls with clients, talking to clients, doing things to help my clients get results, which of course is the most important thing, is that I have great results for my clients. At a base level, that's the focus. The cool thing, and maybe not cool, but the very interesting thing is with where I'm at right now, the best 10 out of 10 activity for me to do, you would probably think it's just to work on the product and make the products better. Because of course, as a general rule, that's always the most important thing, 100%. But because working on the product is long-term my focus, in a kind of a backwards way, the highest leverage, most important thing I can be doing right now is actually sales and taking sales calls. Because I'm not at a point where I have 1,000 clients, right? I'm making 10, 20k per month, 30k per month. I'm sitting at around that level with quite a good amount of clients, but not enough to where I have a very, very large data set of information to make decisions and make massive decisions on when it comes to the product. So the best, most important thing that I could be doing right now is taking sales calls and getting more people inside of Olympus, right? So the number one priority for me right now is, well, I mean, actually, to be completely honest, the number one priority is still delivery, right? Don't get me wrong, in terms of my current clients, right? So talking to my current clients, hopping on calls with them, hopping on the group calls, delivering them more value, fixing their problems, making sure that we get them more results. To give you an example, and so to give you an example of this kind of service delivery work that I'm talking about, a client of ours, Shay, was having kind of a bit of a problem with his cold calling, right? He was just very new to the program, he was cold calling, and he's having some big kind of issues with objection handling and over the phone kind of objection rebuttals. So I spent some time with him to fix that. And now I'll pull up a picture on screen. He literally has a fully booked calendar every single week for the rest of this week and for next week already. His calendar is so packed, it's genuinely insane, right? So of course, number one is getting my client results. But, and I mean that for my current clients, I don't mean massive projects, because these massive projects only make sense to do when I have more clients in and when we have some of the steps that I'm going to talk about in a second here completed. So number one, of course, is delivery. So that's going to mean maybe the group calls that we have at 10 and at 10. Maybe it's going to be the group calls, right? But then the bulk of my day in terms of my time is going to be in sales and then appointment booking, right? Of course, the higher leverage thing is to take the sales calls. So that's why I have setters and I have some different systems set up to be booking sales calls for me as well. But if I'm in a situation where for the next 2 hours I don't have a sales call, of course I'm going to do outbound myself, because it means more outbound, which means more sales calls. And of course, stuff like recording this content, something that only I can do, which is going to help book more sales calls. So ideally, and this is the place that we're getting to, what my day is going to look like is that I have these parts where I'm doing, the service delivery, the helping out my clients, but it's kind of going to look like basically sales call, 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 right? This is the highest leverage thing that I can be doing right now to move towards going from kind of 10 to 20, okay, to longer term, 6 to 12 months from now, 100K per month plus, is by doing sales and becoming more or less a full-time sales rep for the company. Now, what the plan is in terms of booking the sales calls is pretty simple. So what we have is right now, LinkedIn and Facebook are by far the best places for us to do DMs, because our cold DMing system works best on connection-based platforms, which LinkedIn and Facebook are, as opposed to something like Instagram or Twitter, right? So we are going to be looking into doing things on Twitter, doing things on Instagram potentially, but just to keep it simple, we'll talk about LinkedIn, we'll talk about Facebook. So on LinkedIn and on Facebook, we can be sending 20 DMs per day per account. That's the kind of golden rule that we're hitting. Monday to Sunday, we send 20 DMs per day, right? So what we have here is, what we really need to do to be able to send a large amount of DMs is scale horizontally. And the reason being is that we can't go from 20 to 40 DMs per day on the same account. It just doesn't work. 20s, we've already hit the max limit. So instead of scaling by trying to send more DMs per account, we scale sideways by creating more accounts, right? So I have my main LinkedIn account, I have my main Facebook account, and then I also have other LinkedIn and other Facebook accounts that some of them are managed by me, maybe a few of them are managed by me, that have potentially like my friends' identities. So my friend Lewis, I used his identity, of course, with his permission, to create a LinkedIn account under his name, right? And then I can use that LinkedIn account to send more cold DMs. But where the real leverage is going to be, so let's say I have a few accounts for myself. So let's say this is Matt, a few accounts for myself. I then have setters as well, right? And these setters will have their personal LinkedIn, their personal Facebook, and then ideally these setters create many of these accounts using many different kind of names, different aliases, right? So at least let's say that each setter has 4 accounts. They both have the personal LinkedIn, personal Facebook, and then a friend's LinkedIn and a friend's Facebook. And let's say that right now we have 2 appointment setters, right? So these 4 are me, these 4 are setter 1, and these 4 are setter 2, right? So that means I'm sending 20, 40, 60, 80 DMs per day. Setter 1 is sending 80 DMs per day. and setter 2 is sending 80 DMs per day. So together here, that is 240 DMs per day. And I'm going to tell you right now, especially on LinkedIn and Facebook, our system works very, very fucking well. The minimum standard that we usually have is a 3% appointment booking rate. Sometimes higher, it's at 4 or 5%, but at a minimum, it will be 3% appointment booking rate is what we're going to set. Okay, so if we just do the maths here, if we say 3% of 240, that is 7 appointments per day that we can be booking just with DMs. 7 per day. And this is Monday to Sunday that we're sending these DMs, right? So just with that, we're booking a fuck ton of sales calls. And just with that, my calendar should be more or less completely full and get to a point where this can be my day in, day out. We're already probably halfway there, booking 4 or 5 calls per day. But of course, we can always improve, right? So just with these systems alone, we can be booking a crazy amount of sales calls, 7 per day, right? And then, so we have this DM system here. We can then also implement other stuff like cold calls. Cold calls in my niche, working with agency owners, something that aren't really done that much, but it is still somewhat viable. So this right now is kind of a question of testing it, seeing if it's worth doing, see if it's scalable. That's a potential thing. Another big thing is emails. Now, with the email system that we have, it works very well, and it can be, and the cool thing about this one is it can be completely automated while still maintaining very good appointment booking rates. Because most email systems you see, you just kind of chuck them into instantly and they just kind of send and they do okay with a 0.5% ABR. Ours is very hyper personalized while still being extremely automated and taking about 15 minutes per day to do, right? If we wanted to, we could have this email system taking me 15 minutes per day, right? Which is very cool to see, sending around 100 messages per day, which is great, right? And the 100 per day emails, or let's say maybe 150 per day cold calls. Maybe if cold calls have a 3% ABR, maybe emails have a 2.5% ABR. That's another 2.5 meetings per day. That's another 3% of 150. Was that 4? That could be wrong, but let's say 4. 4 meetings per day, right? So these are up in air. These are things that we're testing now to book more appointments, cold calls, emails, different things. We're always constantly testing all the systems that we have inside of Olympus. We're constantly iterating, trying to find new things that work, and it's awesome, right? But with these 3 systems, when it comes to outbound, potentially 4 appointments per day from cold calls, potentially 2.5 per day coming from emails, and 7+ per day coming from this DM system. This DM system is definitely by far our favorite when it comes to outbound. Works incredibly well. This is enough for me to be fully booked, right? For my calendar to be fully booked. And this plus the content that I'm doing on YouTube and on Instagram to book even more calls that are coming from inbound. What this is going to get to is a point here where my calendar is fully booked. I'm signing new clients, and then of course we're getting results for them. That's always going to be the most important thing, is client results. So we're fully booked, we're signing more clients, we're getting more results. Awesome. This is going to mean scale. It's going to mean more money. It's going to mean more clients. It's going to mean more results, as I just literally just said. So this is going to get us to a stage where we're going from 20 to 40 to 60 to 80k per month, right? To 80k per month plus. Of course, then towards 100k per month. Now, while we're doing this, there's a few different things that need to happen, right? First of all, is appointment decentralization. I'll just write decent, but it means decentralization. I'm saying decent, right? So getting to a stage where, because I'm doing so much, I'm taking so many sales calls, I need to kind of decentralize the appointment booking side of things more and more to the point where I'm not doing any outbound at all. And so the way we're going to be doing that is hiring more setters, of course, right? Hiring more setters, potentially when we have 5 setters, making one setter be the kind of head setter, head setter, and then having the head setter be able to manage the other appointment setters, so that is even more decentralized, and we're able to send more and more and more DMs while it takes less and less and less and less of my time. That's of course the goal when it comes to appointment setting. Right, getting to a point where you're booking crazy amount of sales calls, it takes none of the time. Right, with emails, it's basically already there. With cold calls, it would be the same, hiring more setters, decentralizing, right? That's kind of the most important thing when it comes to appointments, is decentralizing as we scale towards these higher numbers. Now, when it comes to sales, I, of course, can only do, 8 per day. It is more or less the limit for the majority of people, 8 per day. And so 8 times 6, so what is that, 8 times 6? 8 times 6 is 48, and maybe some on Sunday. So at the very, very most, I'm taking 40 to 50 calls per week, and that's really pushing it. That's a crazy amount of sales calls to be taking, right? 40 to 50 sales calls per week. We're not far off, being there in a few months, in 6 months, whatever it is. Booking that amount of calls, it's not crazy at all, right? And so there's going to be a point where we go from booking 40 to 50 calls per week to booking 70 or 80, right? When we have a bunch of setters, when we're doing extremely well, going from booking 100 to 200 sales calls a month to 300 plus, that's a very real possibility, right? Getting to that level where we have so many sales calls, it's not something that's going to be out of the ordinary or extreme, right? So the way we're going to be hiring, and the way we're going to be decentralizing sales, and this is what you should be doing as well when you scale, is you staying at the 7 to 8 per day range, calls per day range. And when we're booking so many calls that I just can't handle them all, and when we have a very, very, very clearly defined system and everything's going great, then we hire a rep, right? We hire this rep, and we have this rep taking the spillover calls. So we now have 2 calendars, but my calendar has the priority, right? So let's say I have 8 calls on my calendar, I'm fully booked, but now we have this rep. So there will still be slots available because this rep also has a calendar, right? So any calls that I can't take, then go to the rep. And ideally, we need to be so good at appointment booking and booking so many calls that this rep, is still taking at least 3 to 5 calls per day, just from a spillover, right? And then I'm still, taking the majority of the calls, because of course I'm going to be better at closing than the new rep. And then we kind of move it more and more and more and more towards the rep slowly, so that the rep is taking more and more and more calls. And then what we do is we have this rep now at, so if we just move down, let's say move down in time, we have this rep 1, taking, the 8 calls per day that I was taking. And then we have, rep 2 taking the spillover. And now we kind of repeat the cycle of rep 1 is now at a very solid level for closing. He's the kind of main closer. And then rep 2 taking the spillover until rep 2 kind of gets into a very good groove. And then we kind of put it in a situation where we make it equal between rep 1 and 2. Maybe if it makes sense to, if we're booking that many calls, we hire a 3rd rep, and so on and so forth. But that's the way we're going to kind of go for hiring reps. So for reps, I'm honestly not too concerned for right now, because I still have thousands more sales calls to do before it makes sense for us to hire reps, right? And my role here, if we go all the way back up to the top here, my day is probably just going to be looking like this: like sales call, 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 sales call. That is how we're going to scale, right? Then, when we're at this point where we have these setters and it's decentralized, we have these reps and it's decentralized, and I'm still, even throughout all this time, for my clients, I'm still doing this incredible work. Service delivery is still the absolute focus. I'm checking all my clients daily, doing the group calls, making iterations to the products. That's great, right? What we have right now in terms of the products is we have Olympus, right? And this is kind of a more sort of V3 product. We're always kind of innovating and making things new. So where Olympus is right now is kind of the V3 of the product, right? We've done multiple iterations in the past. And Olympus right now is at a point where, specifically for early stage agency owners, it's the best in the market in terms of getting more clients and setting proper foundations for the agency. For early stage agency owners making between 0 and maybe 5 to 8K per month, it's the creme de la creme. It's the best thing in the market. 100% for people that are making 50K per month, or for people that are in coaching or in consulting. There are better programs. I'm not gonna lie to you, but our small niche area of expertise, right now, we are the best, which is great. That's cool, but I want to be better, and I know that it can be better. And even though I know objectively our results are fucking insane, and the amount of results that we have compared to the amount of clients we have, that ratio is probably higher than anybody else in the entire market. Our product is so good, it genuinely is incredible. It can be better, right? And I have that part of me on where I have this extreme confidence, but then I also kind of have a part of me where I'm telling myself every day that the product is shit. And this is shit, this sucks, this could be so much better. And of course, I have that perfectionism, right? Which is a good thing sometimes, is a bad thing sometimes. But for me, to make a new iteration of Olympus, I cannot do that while I'm taking sales calls, right? Because for me to make, and this is what I want to do to scale long term, is to iterate Olympus yet again and take it from being the best in the market to being the magnum opus of my business long term, right? So it's already the best in the market, specifically for my market. That's cool, that's awesome. But I know I can go further than that, right? So I'm going to have Olympus where it is. Of course, I'm going to, especially when it comes to the specific systems and the outbound methods, we're going to be always constantly iterating and constantly changing things and constantly improving to make sure it's up to date, right? But once I've reached maybe 80, maybe 100K per month, once the setting is more decentralized, once the sales calls are more decentralized, well, I'm of course still running the business, but I'm more working on the business, not in it, which is going to be in 80, 100K per month. That is when I can really create that magnum opus. And I feel as though I've already done it for Olympus, but in 12 months from now, however long it's going to take me, there is more to come. And there is something that I can make that I have already to an extent kind of mapped out in my mind, that would need that 6 or 9 months of absolute supreme deadly focus. I mean, just building Olympus took me 6 months, but creating something that's genuinely out of this world would take me 9 to 12 months of days. Well, I'm not taking sales schools, I have reps doing that. I'm not doing the DMs, I have setters doing that. It would take me that extreme level of monastic focus is what I would need to create like the magnum opus of my business, and something that I can then use to scale even further, right? So to put it simply here, if we zoom out, I know this, you probably can't see this very well, but what we're doing here is we have focus and we have simplicity, my personal life, right? I'm working Monday to Saturday, or I guess Monday to Sunday midday, and then Sunday midday and afterwards, I'm kind of taking that time to do personal life stuff. My day looks like I wake up 7:45 to 8:15, habits, sales schools, gym, sales schools, sleeping. That's what of course, it doesn't look like that yet. I'm still doing a lot of outbound myself. I'm still doing other things, but that's what the ideal kind of scaling day looks like. And of course, with all the group coaching and all the helping my clients in the middle of that as well. And then I'm getting to a point here where we're booking more and more sales calls. We have a fully booked calendar. I'm going from 10 to 20 to 40 to 60 to 80K per month. I'm hiring setters, I'm hiring reps, I'm making the outbound process more decentralized, and then when it makes sense to, of course, day in, day out, I'm checking with my current clients and making sure my current clients are getting results, but then I'm creating a magnum opus of a product, going from the best in the market to like the peak of human ability, and creating the best thing that I could possibly produce long term, and using that to then scale even further, right? So laid it all out for you. That's the goal. That's what my plans look like. At the end of the day, the number one most important thing is my client's results, and everything I'm doing is optimized for my client's results, and it's optimized for long term, being able to help as many people as possible and get results for as many people as possible, right? So if you are a more early stage agency owner, making between maybe 0, maybe 5, maybe 8K per month, the first link in the description is for you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.